Greetings, y'all. Welcome to another video. Today, we are diving back into my CD collection and looking at all the CDs that I own by the band R.E.M. You ever heard of them? Of course you have. We all know R.E.M., right? I mean, they basically gave birth to college rock, modern rock. I mean, I think, maybe they didn't, but I think when we think of that sort of genre that kind of came to be in the 80s, I think we always kind of start with the conversation with R.E.M. Fantastic band. Never got to see them live, and I kind of kick myself for that now. But what can you do, So there's a bunch to go through here. Let's just kind of whiz through these and see how it goes. 1983, we get Murmur, their full-length debut on the great IRS record label. I think when I first heard of R.E.M., it was seeing a music video in probably 1985 on our local music video station called U68. They played the video for Radio Free Europe. And so that was my introduction, like 85. A couple of years after the fact, I heard Radio Free Europe, or I saw the video. And I remember liking it. I remember it made sort of an impression, but I didn't run out and start picking up albums. That didn't come until much later. Fantastic record. Tracks on here that I really like are the aforementioned Radio Free Europe, Talk About the Passion, Perfect Circle, Catapult, and We Walk is another one that I really like on here. Like I didn't mention, because everybody knows R.E.M., but when they first started out, I think it was more of that kind of like jangly guitar, pretty cool guitar riffs and everything. But the other thing was the harmonies. Michael Stipe, I think it was just Michael Stipe and Mike Mills. Those harmonies were just insane. I mean, I don't know that, I'm sure people do talk about it, but I don't know if they're ever like in that discussion. When people think of great harmonies, they think Beach Boys and all that stuff. But man, I'd put the harmonies of R.E.M. right up there with them, man, because they are fantastic. And you hear it right out of the gate, right on this album. But yeah, great album, Murmur. 1984 brings us Reckoning, another really good album by R.E.M., and they're pumping them out like once a year here. See the little booklet, a little bit of stuff in there. I'm sure all, if not most of these have been reissued with, nice liner notes and probably bonus tracks and all that kind of stuff. But yeah. Another great record. Tracks on here I like are South Central Rain, Pretty Persuasion, Camera, and Don't Go Back to Rockville. Oh, what I didn't mention at the beginning of the video, I've added these CD collection videos. What I've decided to do at the end of them is sort of like make as if I was commissioned to make a 10-track best of R.E.M. record. What would that track listing look like? So I'll do that at the end. Maybe I was just giving you a hint of what is yet to come. An interesting thing I remember reading about South Central Rain is that they played that on the old David Letterman show in the 80s when they were guests on the show. But the song was so new that it didn't even have a title yet. So they just played this, which is so bizarre to think, because, people are always promoting things on those talk shows. But to think they went on there to play a song that didn't even have a title is pretty amazing. But yeah, cool record. 1985 brings us Fables of the Reconstruction. But the weird thing on the spine here is it says Reconstruction of the Fables. I remember sort of them doing something weird like that. Yeah, I don't want to keep saying another cool record or whatever, but yeah, another solid record by R.E.M. They're really kind of, having a nice run here in the 80s. I know recently everybody probably saw the news. There was the actor was doing like his R.E.M. tour, playing the full albums. They were doing this album because it was the 40th anniversary, I guess. And when they were down in Athens at, I think, the 40 Watt Club, the R.E.M. jumped up on stage and sang a tune with them, which is pretty cool, But yeah, cool album. I keep saying that, I'm sorry. The tunes on here I like are Driver 8, Green Grow the Rushes, Kohutek, Auctioneer, and Wendell G. Yeah, great record. I keep saying it. 1986, we get Life's Rich Pageant. I'm not going to say it. This record really kicks off, like, it really comes like out of the gates just like with this kind of heavier rock sound to it, That's just something that really stood out when I was kind of re-listening to these. They worked with, I know early on they worked with, the one guy's name's slipping my mind, but Don Dixon produced a lot of their early stuff. For this record, they apparently really liked the sound of John Cougar Mellencamp's Scarecrow record, and decided to work with his producer and record in John Cougar Mellencamp's studio. But his producer, Don Gaiman, I guess is his name, is how he pronounced. I really thought he did a fantastic job producing this band. They just sound like, it sounds like how you think they should sound. Maybe some of those earlier albums are a little grittier, or I don't know, whatever the word is, but like this, I just felt like it just sounded like everything came together, Like I think some people thought early on Michael Stipe, you couldn't understand what he was singing, his voice was a little mumbly or whatever, and I think on this one, I think on albums you start sounding him, I don't know if the proper term would be, his confidence was growing with himself as a singer, perhaps, I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting to me that they never worked with this guy again. I know Scott Litt comes into the picture soon, and he's sort of their, regular producer going forward. But yeah, I don't know. It surprises me that they didn't work with him again, because it felt like he really captured their sound brilliantly. Begin the Begin, Hyena, Just a Touch, I Believe, These Days, What If We Give It Away, Fall on Me, Swan Swan H, and the cover Superman. I remember hearing that song, like I mentioned in like 1985, I saw the video for Radio Free Europe, but I remember hearing their version of Superman really early too. Maybe that was like the second thing I heard by them. I always loved Fall on Me, those drums that kind of kick it off, man. I just always loved that. But yeah, Life's Rich Pageant. 1987, we get Dead Letter Office. This is a compilation of a bunch of kind of outtakes and singles and, odds and sods, as some bands say. This CD version, you might have just caught this picture right here of Chronic Town. That was their first release. It was an EP, I think, in '82 that was put out before their first full-length album. But yeah, great collection of different kinds of tunes. They do a bunch of Velvet Underground covers on here, some kind of silly sort of goofy around kind of stuff, or just a little bit of that. But it's a fun record to listen to. On here you've got Crazy, which is a cover of a Great Pylon song, Burning Down, White Tornado, which sort of sounds like a surf instrumental almost, Wind Out, Ages of You, Walter's Theme, Gardening at Night, and Carnival of Sorts. Gardening at Night, the version that's on here, there's another version that I actually like. It has a different vocal mix or whatever, or different vocal take. I like that version better than the one that's on here. Walter's Theme is kind of this, it's really cool music, but it's them kind of just goofing around. I don't know if they were drunk and they were just kind of making up a song on the spot for some local barbecue place. Wind Out's really good. That was in the movie Bachelor Party, the classic Bachelor Party with Tom Hanks. Yeah, but nice collection of some B-sides and rarities or what have you. 1987, we get Document. This is the big one, or the first big one. I think they had some success prior. Albums, I think, were selling pretty well. But this is the first time they reached the top 40 of the singles chart. Not that they were really chasing that, but they have a hit, with this record. And Then after this record, they leave for the majors. But whatever, what can you do? Tracks on here that I like are Finest Work Song, Exhuming McCarthy, Strange, It's the End of the World as We Know It, The One I Love, which was the big hit, and Lightnin' Hopkins. I do remember, this is probably the first thing I ever bought by R.E.M. I remember buying the cassette single of It's the End of the World as We Know It. So that's probably the first thing I ever bought. Don't have it anymore, gave all those away years ago. 1988, we get Green, and we get R.E.M. on a major label. They leave IRS behind and head over to Warner's. Can't blame them. Lots of bands do that. You know, they get a nice offer from the majors, more distribution, bigger advance, whatever the case may be. You know, they're going to jump ship, of course, you know. This record is the first R.E.M. album that I buy. I remember hearing the first single, Orange Crush, on the radio and loved it. Thought it was an amazing song. Went right out and picked up this record on CD. This is it. This is the one. And listened to this nonstop after I got it. Just a fantastic album. Tunes on here that I still like. Pop Song 89, Get Up, You Are the Everything, World Leader Pretend, Orange Crush, like I mentioned, Turn You Inside Out, and I even still like Stand. I know it got played to death. I remember it being the theme of the great Chris Elliott TV show Get a Life, but I still like it. You know, I haven't listened to it in ages, and listening to it just recently for this video, I just kind of was like, yeah, you know what, it holds up. And then there's like an 11th track that's not listed here that's basically untitled, which, you know, I mean, I don't know that it's really a hidden track, but you know, that was something that was done like in the 90s. Like everybody had like a hidden track on their CDs. This is the first time I remember kind of crossing paths with something like that. But yeah, Green, R.E.M. And if you stare at this album and then look at a wall, the cover, you'll see it in green. There's the reason why it's orange. Also from 1988, we get Eponymous. This is a compilation put out by IRS once the band had left to Warner's. IRS put this out. And it's a great collection, a great primer of R.E.M.'s IRS years. I always thought this was kind of funny, this Michael Stipe picture from his yearbook that says they airbrushed my face. Yeah, I mean, I picked this up right after I got Green. I liked Green so much, and then I kind of was becoming a fan, and I heard about this somehow and went out and picked it up. I bought this at my old record store that I loved so much from my youth called Platypus. I remember going in there and looking for this record, and I think I remember getting it and bringing it up to the counter, and like I said, Green had just come out, and the guy at the counter was like convinced I wanted Green. He's like, this isn't the new R.E.M. album, you know that? I'm like, yeah, I know, this is the one I want. He's like, this isn't the new one, this isn't the one with orange. And I was like, dude, I get it, man. But yeah, so I picked this up right after Green sometime, and this is a great record. There's a couple of tracks on here that are sort of like non-album releases. There's a couple of different mixes. Like I mentioned, the other version of Gardening at Night. I like the vocal version that's on here better. If you want to just kind of dip your toes, you're not familiar with their early stuff, this is a great collection of songs to kind of test the waters of the early R.E.M. 1991, we get Out of Time. This is the big one. This is the album that kind of, you know, makes them this huge rock act. And I don't think they toured behind this record, surprisingly, you know, but this record was just massive at the time. And this booklet's going to be massive unfolding it, isn't it? There you go. I'll try to show you what's in here. All these pictures and stuff. You get a little look. But I remember, like, I think I just like started college, and I just remember walking around New York City and seeing all the billboards, you know, announcing this record's coming out, you know. I mean, that's what you get. You sign with the major label, now you've got billboards all over New York City announcing your new record. And it was a big popular record, and I picked it up probably right away, and I really liked this album. On here you've got Radio Song, Low, Near Wild Heaven, Belong, Half a World Away, Texarkana, and Me and Honey is another one that's really good. I didn't mention, and a lot of you might be asking, Losing My Religion. It's an okay song. I don't think even back then I was ever that crazy about it. I mean, it was like the big single and everything, but it's all right song. I've just never been that bananas about it. Belong's kind of interesting. It's almost like a spoken word thing. And then, of course, Shiny Happy People, which I don't think I liked from day one. It's a little annoying. But interesting record. You got KRS-One appearing on here. Kate Pearson, not a big surprise from the B-52s, lending some background vocals. 1992, we get Automatic for the People. Automatic for the People title came from Weaver D's Soul Food down in Athens. And I've been to Athens a few times. Every time I go there, I try to eat at Weaver D's. And every time I go there, they're closed. I'm heading down to South Carolina pretty soon, tomorrow, for work. And I'm thinking I might take another drive out and try to eat at Weaver D's again. We'll see, maybe one day. But this album comes out. This is kind of where I start to lose interest. I remember getting this record, and yeah, I don't know. It was okay. I wasn't bananas about it at the time, and I think after this, I didn't pick any new R.E.M. albums out for quite a while. But, it's not horrible. There's a couple of good songs on here. Tracks that I like are Drive, The Sidewinder Sleeps Tonight, Ignore Land, Man on the Moon, and Find the River. Man on the Moon, I remember liking. When this came out, I loved it. Now it's, been heard a million times, but I still really, really like it. I was a big fan of Andy Kaufman's. Ignore Land, I remember, was also like one of my favorites on here. The big one on here that I didn't mention, again, that a lot of people might be questioning, is Everybody Hurts. It's a pretty good song. It's not bad. I don't dislike it. Like, I'm not a big fan of Losing My Religion, but Everybody Hurts is pretty good. But it's not one of my favorites, though. But good record. 1994, we get Monster. This is the famous record that all of you know is always available at thrift stores in the used CD bins. So like I said, I kind of lost interest after Automatic for the People. I didn't buy this album when it came out. I picked it up years later at a thrift store, Goodwill. But it's a good record, I really actually like it. Listened to it recently, and this was kind of really pushed as like R.E.M's return to rock. Some of those previous records had gotten a little maybe melancholy, but this was like them we want to make a rock record again, and that's what this was. And I think for the most part they succeed. It's a lot better than I remember, and it's a good album. Tracks on here I like are What's the Frequency, Kenneth, Crush with Eyeliner, King of Comedy, Star 69, Strange Currencies, and Bang and Blame. Star 69 reminds me of something that sounds like it could have been on one of their early IRS albums. It's kind of got that sound to it. Let Me In on here is sort of a tribute to Kurt Cobain. While they were making this record, Kurt Cobain passed, who the band knew. And also River Phoenix, they dedicated this record to him. He had passed away, and they were friends with him as well. But yeah, a lot better than I remember it being. And 1996 brings us New Adventures in Hi-Fi. Did not pick this up at the time. Picked this up maybe within the last 10 years at a Goodwill for probably 99 cents. Like I said, I kind of lost interest in R.E.M. around when these records are coming out. And yeah, just, had no real interest in this. I remember this coming out, but I don't know if I can even say that I remember hearing the first single or anything. I don't even remember what the first single on here was. Maybe Ebo the Letter. I don't even know, maybe, but yeah, I mean, it's an okay record. I'm not that bananas about it. Oh, look, This was originally at the record chain The Wall. This is sort of like, at that time, what I was sort of thinking of R.E.M, that they kind of gotten a little boring or something. And I mean, this record's, you know, a lot of it kind of doesn't do very much for me. The tracks that I do like on here are The Wake Up Bomb, Leave, Departure, Be Mine, and Binky the Doormat. Departure, I think, is my favorite track on here. That's a really good one. But yeah, you know, New Adventures. And that's it. I didn't buy any of the other records that came out after that. I'd heard a couple of songs from some of them. I know there were one or two songs from those later R.E.M. records that I think I liked. I think this is the last one. I think Bill Berry's on here, because then he leaves the band, and then I really wasn't that interested. But I know some of those people have said some of those last records, maybe Accelerate or Collapse Into Now, were really good. But I don't own them, and I've never really had any desire to pick them up. But I don't know, maybe I should. Let me know what you think. If you recommend maybe those later records, anything from them. Up always seemed like a real kind of bore to me. But so here we go. I mentioned I was going to do my curated best of R.E.M, what I would put on there. I have my little trusty post-it note to tell you. Here's what we got: Radio Free Europe, Texarkana, Fall on Me, Wind Out, Bad Day, which isn't on any of these records. It was on a Warner's Best Of that was put out, but I really love that song. It sounds a little bit like same kind of tempo or whatever as It's the End of the World as You Know It. Don't Go Back to Rockville, Ignore Land, South Central Rain, Orange Crush, and I'm putting it on here, Man on the Moon. So let me know what your R.E.M 10 would be. And thank you for tuning in, and see you next time. Later.